Hi, everybody. It's nice to be presenting in my own city. I've been doing a lot of presenting in Toronto. My name is Dave O'Brien. I'm the president and CEO of Stuhini. I'm also the co-founder. I've been an investor all my life, and in 2021, I did 20 private placements, and I just don't know that a lot of mineral exploration companies are run properly. I draw a $2,000 a month salary, and last year I took $24,000 in wages, and my wife and I bought $185,000 in hard checks in our own company. So sort of money is where our mouth is, and we believe in what we're doing. And I'm a businessman. I run some fly fishing businesses in Vancouver, and I've sort of built the best in class business. And I think business acumen is badly needed in the sector as well. So a little bit of a different approach. I've been an investor in mineral exploration all my life. I'm a value investor. My educational background is in math. So we founded Stuhini in 2017. We IPO'd in 2019. We have some forward-looking statements. We try to be accurate. We're basically a mineral exploration developing base and precious metals in Western Canada, and we're basically open-minded. We just want to make sure we buy stuff when it's cheap and out of favor, and you have to buy. Yep, that's where you pick things up when they're cheap and on sale. You don't buy things when they're hot. You don't chase. So our number one project, obviously our signature project, the Ruby Creek project, is some of you might know as the ADNAC molybdenum project. It was quite advanced. I'll talk about that in a bit. During the last cycle, the project went right into construction, and that's in Atlin, BC. We fly to Whitehorse, and it's about a 2 hour and 15-minute flight to Whitehorse, and about an hour and 50-minute drive back into BC into Atlin. It's road accessible. We have an option for 100% of the project, subject to a 1% royalty. We've also got a Q project in the Yukon. We really like that project, early stage. We got the Big Ledge zinc project, a fairly advanced zinc project in southern BC, and our Manitoba nickel. And we've recently acquired, by staking, 4 projects in the Arizona area. We're trying to get a copper flavor, and we don't have something quite as nice as cloudy in southern BC, so we ended up in Arizona. Our teams are down there right now. So we have 44.6 million shares outstanding right now. 37.2% insider, and the key insider is Eric Sprott. He just gave us $1 million check in a recent financing. Sprott Asset Management and Middlefield are also key investors, not part of the insider group. Again, I have a modest salary, and I participated in 5 of the last. Since we went public, we've done 6 financings. I participated in 5 of them. Very low G&O. We use one of my fly fishing stores as our office. And my CFO typically bills us $1,700 a month, and my corporate secretary, who's a retired lawyer, bills us about $2,500 a month. So we're all big shareholders, and we've also got a pretty good cash balance. We took advantage of the recent spike in the price of molybdenum, and we have $2.9 million, all hard dollar in the bank right now. So our treasury is full. I'll talk about this a bit later. I'm very, very proud of my team. I don't really have time to go over it, but you're only as good as your people, and that's like my fly fishing business. You're only as good as your people, and I surround myself with brilliant people. Tony, our chairman, is a lawyer and a geologist, fantastic chairman. Kazuki is a fund manager, a very bright guy. Fiore runs Metalis Resources. Asan, Yana, and Charles, my fellow executives, they're fantastic. I'm very, very proud to be working with these people. You're only as good as the people you have. And I've got some pretty bright people in the advisory board. Bruce is in the audience here, and he was married in Atlanta, and he phones in the mouth when he talks about the unique nature of our deposit. And Paul Zyla and Mark and Sean's been a big help, and Janet's Barry's wife. We've got a pretty amazing team. That's an interesting picture right there, because that's where the big molybdenum porphyry sits. It's a depression. It's gentle. It's road accessible. So our signature project, Ruby Creek, it's 29,400 hectare package. It's road access, 14 kilometers from the edge of our tenures to Atlin, and we can literally have coffee in Atlin and do 80 kilometers an hour along a really well-built gravel road and be on our tenors. We have an option to buy the project 100% subject to a 1% NSR, and we've completed 4 of 5 payments on that option, and that's what we're hoping to do short term, is complete the option agreement. We've already given the vendor 5.5 million shares, and of course it hosts the world-class Ruby Creek molybdenum deposit, also known as the ADNAC molybdenum deposit. What's interesting too is up until 2022, the largest placer camp in Canada was in the Atlin area. There's 10 significant placer creeks, and 7 of the 10 are in a project. These are all undrilled. So there's all the work since the late 60s with Molly, but very little modern exploration done in the tenors. Talk more about that in a bit. There's historical silver, gold, and tungsten mines, sort of small scale operations. A lot of it was turn of the century, and very little modern work done. And we do have several drill targets identified. We hired Stephen Ristrichelli, led lead author of our resource update we did last year, and the rules have changed a little bit. So they produced a pit-constrained resource, not a global resource, a pit-constrained resource. And using $15 a pound moly, they have 433 million pounds of moly. And molybdenum, we only refer to the measured and indicated. There's 42 million pounds of inferred, and it's also open in 3 directions. It's open at depth. Hole 80-417, I mentioned, they're bottomed out in 45 meters of 0.23. That's not within the pit. That's just outside of the pit. I'll talk about that. And the Port of Skagway is 275 kilometers away. And I want to emphasize, this project went through bankable feasibility and went into construction during the last cycle. So they've already done the bulk sample. They've done the metallurgy. A lot of work's already been done. It's all been drilled out. And they did the road upgrade as well. Leadcore did the road upgrade. It's a $22 million road upgrade. It's a haul road. And we still have a BC Mines Act permit in place. And it's also very unusual. It's a climax-style molybdenum deposit. I'll talk more about that in a minute. This is sort of a picture of the pit, the resources in the pit. If you go back one slide, you'll see sort of center right of the red area where the starter pit is. That's a very important part because that's where you get your initial feed. It's very shallow. They say it's got beautiful geometry. And the best hole you can see on the very left, 84-17, bottomed out in 45 meters of 0.23. Zijin, a big Chinese giant, recently bought a molybdenum project in China, an underground operation, head grade of 0.13. So obviously 45 meters of 0.23 is much, much higher grade than our project. And we report molybdenum, not molybdenum disulfide like a lot of our competitors. And you have to multiply those molybdenum grades by 1.66 to get an MOS2 or a moly disulfide equivalent, or molybdenite as it's called. And again, they use $15 moly, and it's a fairly conservative model. We hired a very conservative firm to do a resource update. Why molybdenum? Well, first of all, it's a metal of the future. The International Moly Association just put out the numbers. 2022 went from a 610 million pound market to a 630 million pound market, grew by 3%. 580 million pounds were produced. The main use right now, the growth is the big wind turbines you see for electric energy. They need those gearboxes to last 25 years, and molybdenum is very, very durable, and it's a key additive for steel. And if you want corrosion resistance and hardness and durability, you need the moly content. The Germans have recently been, the main use of molybdenum, 39% of molybdenum is used to lighten steel, and when you strengthening essentially. When you add molybdenum to steel, it makes it much stronger, and you can reduce the weight. And the electric cars in Germany reduced them by up to 25%. So we're hoping that the automobile sector starts using a lot more molybdenum as well. The World Bank stated of 9 green energy initiatives, 7 of them involve molybdenum. It's certainly a critical element here in Canada. What's interesting about our project is in the world, 80% of the molybdenum comes as a byproduct from copper mining, and 20% comes from pure play. And ours is a pure play. And the end result product is a pure form of molybdenum. Certainly for rebar and general carbon steel, it's not a big deal. All steel you see has molybdenum in it, but high quality steel for the dairy industry and for the medical industry and for the nuclear industry, they need the high purity molybdenum. That's what we have. And the copper byproduct, a lot of reagents are used to free up the copper, and a pure play is a very, very clean type of mining process. We all know mining's not clean, but you basically crush it and float in water and a little bit of kerosene. It's a very clean process. So it's ours is a pure play. Very unusual. If you Google Climax molybdenum, it's Freeport McMoran controls Climax and Henderson. Those are pure play. And again, all the rest of it comes as byproduct. And not all, big Kamoa in Africa, they don't have the moly. It's more along the Archean, the Pacific belt from basically from the bottom of South America all the way to Alaska, along the subduction zone along the Pacific, where you're going to see the copper, the molybdenum byproduct. The biggest molybdenum producer in British Columbia is Highland Valley through Teck. So it's interesting. It's what's unique about molybdenum, it doesn't, it's supplied from the copper business, but it doesn't follow copper demand. And we recently had a really big spike in the price of molybdenum. You can see here. And it's since backed off. But the nice thing is it's now at new highs. It's now settling in above $20. But everyone asks us, why did molybdenum shoot up like it did? And I can't answer that. But what we do know is I listened to Freeport recently had a conference call, and one of the callers asked about why the dramatic spike in February. And they just said that it's a very tight market. And a port shuts down in Chile for a couple of weeks, and you have a shortage of molybdenum like that. So we're excited about it. When we got the project, moly was $6-8 pound range, and nobody cared about it. It's now over 20. We bought it for $2.5 million in cash and share, and it was out of favor. Again, I don't want to hang my hat on what might happen, but if you Google molybdenum batteries, you've got 4 times the capacity of your standard lithium batteries. A lot of experiments are being done. It's also very unique. There's no substitute for molybdenum. It's a very key, it's a steel additive, but it's got very unique alloying properties, nothing like it. And there's a lot of other new things we're working on behind the scenes. Again, we don't want to hang our hats on what might happen. Geotechnicals can be very big. Hydrogen technology is very big. It's an interesting market. I meant those big offshore wind turbines in the North Sea. They use 130 kilograms of molybdenum per megawatt of power generated. And typically each of those will use 1.5 tons of molybdenum. And again, the World Bank. It's a very, very interesting, and you get in early. I mean, ADNAC had a $250 to $300 million market, cap at one point in time. Right now, our enterprise value is probably $9 million. So we're pretty attractive, and our shares are tightly held. And we've also, when we first got the Ruby Creek project, we did a lot of other exploration. We identified 4 high-priority silver targets. Nobody cares about silver, but we're quite excited about Silver Surprise. We have from 16,000, several grab samples over 1%. Also, at Daybreak, again, was a new discovery. And the Atlan Ruffner mine has been a former producer, and Homestake did a lot of work. They got snuffed out by Newmont on the project. We've imported all their data and incorporated into our data sets as well. And the Dira corridor, right where the molybdenum mine is, a 7-kilometer long corridor. There is more of galena type stuff. Some of the grades are, I mentioned 4,900 grams silver and 68% lead. So interesting. But they're just 1 to 1.5 meter wide galena veins. Done some geophysics. And I want to briefly talk about our big lead project in southern BC. We own that 100%, subject to no royalties. The land you see in there is quite unusual. That belongs to Protect Resources, and those are Crown Grant claims. And there's 100 million tons of 4% zinc, about 5% equivalent with the lead value, including about 10 million tons of 7%. And we own the land around it. And any drilling done outside of their tenders has hit zinc. And you can see right now we've done airborne geophysics in the project. There's definitely the mineralized structures extend onto our claims. And we hope to have more news on this as well. A Q project in the Yukon, it's an early stage project. We're quite excited about it. There's 4 different targets, including a very, very large ultramafic intrusion. You can see the ultramafic intrusion in red there, shows up like a sore thumb. And Todd Ballantyne, who's the geophysicist for Great Bear, he's been, the geophysicists, I love them, like engineers, they don't get excited, but he goes some very interesting geophysics on the property. And again, we have an option for 100% of that. And South Thompson Nickel in Manitoba, we staked that project recently. And the story there is AMAX in 1983 hit 165 meters of 0.32% nickel, and Falconbridge drilled 24 meters of 0.35. But the geophysics was done later, and the bullseye anomalies were missed, and particularly at TEX-1. All we want to do is step out 450 meters away from where Falconbridge drilled and drill the top of the anomaly. And we believe we can do a 2-hole program for about $400,000. So again, Canada Nickel's the talk of the town. Their grade's 0.29. I have a big hole of 0.32, and we're getting zero value for that. So again, we acquire these projects when they're cheap and they're out of favor, and they're ours. And so, our projects are all new and they're all road accessible. They have high potential. We're well funded, and I like to think we're very business savvy. I built a best-in-class fishing business, and the co-founders built a best-in-class drilling business. We have a tight share structure. We've been blessed to have Eric Sprott. We are seeking a strategic partner. I can't talk too much about that, but we're trying to open a lot of doors. I truly believe if Sino-Canadian relationships were better, this would have been sold, because people tell you whatever you do, don't sell to the Chinese, but they're the ones that are smart and they're interested. They're, every year they're having $1 trillion trade surplus, and they're getting $1 trillion in confetti sent to them, and they're spending the confetti and buying real assets, base metals and precious metals in particular. I believe, based on Ruby Creek, you take 433 pounds of molybdenum, multiply $21, get an awfully big number. We're attractive. The space is opening up, get in ahead of the crowds. And also all the critical elements. We do have molybdenum, zinc, nickel, and all copper in Arizona. We're very nimble and cost effective as well. The money we raise goes into the ground. So come on by our booth, take a look. I appreciate your time so much, and enjoy this nice sunny day in Vancouver. Thank you very much.